Hi everyone, here we are, we have reached the fifth and final round of the 2011 Bradford Congress. So my score so far is a win, a draw and 2 losses, and I could do with winning this game or at least getting a draw to get a respectable score. I have at least beaten the score I got in the minor the previous year in a major, so it's not terrible, not the end of the world, but I need a result from this game, otherwise the tournament is still a failure. It was a tough draw against David Hirst, 149 ECF, so I'm upgraded by 8 points and I've black for the third time. As usual, I get 3 blacks like I did at Manchester in practically every other tournament. So you could say that I'm sweating the black pieces, but I have noticed that online I seem to get quite a lot of wins with black, and a lot more than I seem to do with white, so maybe that's why, because I'm getting more games of it. And also, for another, I also got E4 again, E4 every single game, and got it again, so it's my third French game. And this time I got the IQP attack with C4, so white's going to end up with an IQP, but it's going to get some dynamism in return. My few moves, Queen E7, Bishop E4 for like Queen E7 check's quite interesting. But I played Knight F6, and after Knight C3, I played them with Bishop B4, trying to Nimzo-Indian the position, because that's my defense of D4 at the time. Yeah, we do have. You'd think this was a Nimzo-Indian actually after a few moves. That's why I quite like facing this IQP attack system, because although it's quite dangerous, at least you can Nimzo-Indian the position, which I quite like them positions. I'm comfortable with them. So I was quite comfortable at this point. And you should play, I think, Bishop D3, and then I give white the IQP, because the idea is it's a bit like a reverse Tarash, this opening a bit, where I'm not going to take on C4 in this case until the bishops come out, and then it'll take back and it'll waste another move. So D takes C4, Bishop takes C4, and now castling with an interesting dynamic struggle ahead with white space advantage, better development versus the IQP. And I've already talked in a previous video about IQP bullying and all that, so if you want to find out, then please check the video of my game against Bradford for a lecture on IQPs halfway through it. However, he plays A3, encouraging me to double the pawns, and this actually isn't that great, and already gives black the advantage, which isn't a bad start playing high rate as black. I took, but I also could have gone Queen E7 check, throwing in that move, and after Queen E2, because now forced white to block his bishop in. I shouldn't swap the queens off, because then white developed with tempo, so I play Bishop takes C3, B takes C3, and then Bishop E6, blocking the E line and making white's queen look very silly. So next time I will probably throw in that move first, but in this position I played Bishop takes C3 check, which is also fine, B takes C3, and now we are going to see a typical Nimzo-Indian imbalance in the French exchange line, where white's bishop pair in quite an open position against these weak doubled pawns are soon to become the isolated pawn couple. And now I castled. An alternative was Knight C6, Bishop D3, castles, Knight E2, takes, Bishop F5, because the bishop's been opened up to that square. With an interesting and unclear position with white's isolated pawn couple. Again, but he's got the bishop pair in an open position. Chances are a bit even. I didn't like blocking the c pawn much, so I chose to castle instead. And after Bishop D3, now I took on C4, and after Bishop takes C4, we see now I'm going to try and put pressure on the C3 point, and also maybe control C4, because that's a hole now. So again, bishop pair versus superior pawn structure. Which one's going to prevail? And is it going to get me 2.5 or 1.5? Well, or maybe even 2. Well, anyway, time to do a bit of analysis for the first time. In the game I played C5, an interesting move, trying to land white and IQP and preparing maybe Queen A5 to put some pressure on these weak pawns. An interesting alternative is Queen E8 check, Knight E2, and now a stunning move, Bishop H3, exclamation mark, question mark. The point being is if the bishop is taken, and Queen C6, so we're forking a rook and bishop, we force white to compromise his pawn structure, and we're going to get rid of white's bishop pair. Now first of all, white can win a pawn with bishop takes f7 check, the in-between move, rook takes f7, castles, but after knight bd7, followed by knight e4, black's got tremendous activity and compensation for the pawn, and white's going to be hacked if he's not careful. So that's unsound. so rook g1 is preferred, and after queen takes c4, we have white's king's a bit loose because it's hard to castle both sides and his pawn structure's been compromised, so taking the bishop isn't that great. However, the engine suggests the move bishop h6. So what's this crazy position? Both sides have got to put the bishops on proof that can be taken. It's crazy. I couldn't believe Houdini was suggesting these moves. I find it really funny. So let's have a look now. If g takes h6, then g takes h3, and both sides are going to start fighting over the g file, and they've both got awful pawn structures on the king side. However, this would be better for white because white hasn't committed his king yet, so black's going to be under more fire. So best is to throw in maybe bishop takes g2, rook g1, queen c6, protecting and attacking at the same time. And now if d5, then queen takes c4, rook takes g2, so the bishop's not immune due to the pin, and now knight h5 defends everything. It leaves black with a decent position, up a pawn, and white hasn't really got enough. Although black will have to be careful because there is some pressure on his king side. In this position, maybe queen d3 could be played, protecting the bishop, and after g takes h6, although black's temporarily up a piece and a pawn, the g2 bishop is going to fall after f3, shutting the queen's protection of it off. Knight bd7, rook takes g2, check, knight check, castling long. And now white's king is very airy in the queen's side, but rook g1's coming, and the queen's also mentally pointing at black's king, and knight f4, and the bishop's there as well. So black's got a lot of pressure, but white's king isn't safe, and queen a4 could come, and black's also up a pawn, and he's probably better in this position, but it seems white's game looks a bit easier to play. So some remarkable tactics were found by Mr. Houdini then, but none of them were played because I played the move c5. And now, first of all, d takes c5, although it wins a pawn, is a bad idea because of trading queens, and now knight e4. And all of a sudden, three of white's pawns are fought, so one of them's going as well with losing the rook in the process, so white would be in big trouble. He develops another piece with knight f3, adding more protection to the pawn, and I played bishop g4, pinning it. Another option was c takes d4. If c takes d4, then queen c7, hitting the bishop, bishop e2, bishop f5 gives black a very easy position with invasions on c2 planned. So knight takes d4, queen c7, hitting the bishop, queen b3, protecting and putting the battery on f7 perhaps, knight c6 takes, queen takes, and again black's got a comfortable position and at least equal chances if not slightly better. It seems that 6a3 question mark exclamation mark isn't the best move for white, but you see how comfortable I am in these positions. Bishop g4, feeling pretty happy at this point, just waiting for some blunder to undo it all. Castles, and now I went h6, not the best move, a bit weakening as we're going to see. It's very weakening in fact. I was just worried of any potential tactics on h7 if the bishop ever drops back or something, but I was jumping at the shadows. A better move was just carrying developing with knight c6, and here snapping the pawn off with d takes c5 is giving us quite good now because white's castles there's no queen takes d1 light and then nasties on e4, so I should play queen a5, forking two pawns, and after rook b1, queen takes c5, and black's probably slightly better. Rook takes b7 of course is impossible because bishop's on 3, and then black can protect the pawn and look forward to the future with confidence, and stuff like queen h5 could be strong, followed by knight e5. So white actually has to be careful, maybe dropping back to e2 is best. Also I could have chopped on d4, and after c takes d4, queen c7, hitting the bishop again. This queen's a very good piece on c7, and then followed by bringing the knight out, putting pressure on d4. And white hasn't really got the initiative you need when you've got an isolated pawn. He's going to get e5 when his queen moves to d3 or something for sure, but you need more initiative than that for an isolated pawn, and black's got enough as much dynamism as white's in my opinion, giving him a small advantage. So I played h6, and after queen d3. I have to be careful now. In fact, what's really funny is that the previous Thursday in club we did some practicing. We had a look at some tactics where black goes h6 and white plays bishop takes h6 followed by queen g6 check with mate threats. So I've actually been pretty cautious in this position. If the queen came to g6 next move, it would couldn't be taken because of this pin. So let's see. Houdini seems to like bishop takes f3. He seems to also think I've blown away my advantage as well. So I thought but then I thought white's gonna have two bishops against the two knights, so sure this can't be good. But queen takes f3, knight c6. Black's got superior development. D takes c5, and now knight e5 is very strong. So say queen f4, knight takes, queen takes, rook c8. And white's lost his bishop pair, with his other bishops pretty bad as well. And he's also got these awful double pawns with his queen at firing line, so that can't be recommended. So something like rook d1, and white's bishop pair now all of a sudden is a dominating feature in this position, but the game's far from over. Black's got his chances, but white should never take on c5 because the e5 square could become fatal. Chances are slightly better for white because that bishop pair is strong, worth an extra point in some positions. So queen d3, now he's casually playing knight b d7. However, the sacrifice which I completely missed on h6 actually isn't quite sound. White should have played bishop f4, and after c takes, knight c5, queen c2, rook c8, and black's got a bit of initiative actually in this position, although it's not clear how far it'll go. But white has to be careful he doesn't get killed on the c line. And black's knights are strong, probably as good as white's bishops. So this would be quite good. My opponent, however, lashed out with the unexpected shot at the time. Bishop takes h6, question mark, exclamation mark. So what's the point behind this sacrifice? Well, I've seen this sacrifice before, so there's no way I should have been falling for it. But it's not actually completely sound, but I thought it was at the time. His point being is that my f7 pawn's pinned, so once I take the bishop back, then we have queen g6 check, followed by queen takes h6, and then bishop back to d3 or something, and white can generate a crushing attack. However, this is where the fun really starts, and there's some more amazing analysis coming up. Now, the way to kind of refute the sacrifice was not to take back straight away, which I did, which, although it doesn't lose, does give white the better chances. The point being is that this knight becomes a critical role in like winning material back. So, all I had to do was throw an in-between move, which I didn't even consider. Bishop takes f3, removing this potentially dangerous knight. I didn't even consider it. You should always be looking for position zugs like this. And I don't know why I didn't consider it, but it's kind of a story at tournament, I suppose. Missing simple stuff. Now let's look at a few tries for white. The first one is to simply first one is to go all in, like poker style, with queen g6, threatening mate on g7. Black has two defences to this. Knight h5 is weaker because after g takes f3, black's knight is horribly out offside. So knight e8 is much safer, holding g7. And after g takes f3, white's actually not threatening anything at all. So c takes d4 is giving white an IQ peek and played. And if white tries to hack with bishop g5, then after knight e5, bishop takes d8, knight takes g6, bishop a5, rook c8. And you think at first it's equal material, but and white's got two bishops against two knights, so this is clearly better for white. However, white's pawn structure is completely wrecked, and in fact at least one pawn's going to be dropping off, probably a couple, and there's not enough compensation. White's pawn structure is just an absolute shambles, and all his pawns are going to start falling like flies. There's always c3 is already dropping for a start, and it's going to be a pass pawn as well. So white's in big trouble there. And this should be a win for black. So queen g6 doesn't quite cut the mustard. There was also another all-in try with bishop takes g7, trying to rip open as many lines as possible. Black should take, and after queen takes f3, just play the card move, queen c7. And next thing, not only is black a piece up for two pawns, but he actually now has a better attacking chances because the h-file's open, so rook h8 is going to be coming. And white's going to have to be careful himself. And after rook h8, king can rooks can double, king can slot back. It's going to be completely safe, and black's going to be a piece up for two pawns. So this is bad for white. And let's look at the other alternative, is just to take back on f3, ignore it, and after g takes h6, play. Now also white's queen can't come to g6 as well, it has to come to g3, but it's not threatening queen takes h6 check, which is strong. So that's two birds with one stone killed, got rid of dangerous knight and stopped another pawn h6 dropping. What more do you want? Check, king h8, and oops. Take stock of this position. What has white really got in return for peace? It's not really much enough. As long as black's reasonably careful, I don't see why I can't win this game. Out of all of them, I actually think all the positions produced are better for black, if not winning. So I just had to throw an in between move, but I just took back casually. And after queen g6 check, king h8, queen takes h6. You might have a look at bishop takes f7. There's in a game. I used to like watch Chessmaster all the time, and I thought this is very similar to a game, Josh Waitzkin versus Todd Luna. In that game, bishop takes f7 was the killer, but the key difference in this game is that black's king's better defended. So unlike crushing immediately, it doesn't quite work. Say bishop takes f3, queen takes h6, knight h7, and in that game bishop g6 was like crushing on spot, 'cause there's no way to stop defending knight, but knight df6 could be played in this game. And after g takes f3, rook g8, pinning the bishop. Now, it looks like white's doing good with 3 pieces for pawn, but for bishop, but there's an absolute crushing counter attack occurs with king h1 and queen d5. And next thing, the only way queen takes f3 can be stopped is to throw away a pawn with bishop e4. Knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes, f3, queen c2. And this counter attack threatening queen g2 mate is deadly. And although it can be stopped, in the end of the day, black's going to be a piece up for 2 pawns. So that's very bad for white. But it had to be looked at from both sides. So queen takes h6 check. And 2 options, king g8 allows knight g5, and the pressure on f7 and h7 is going to win the game quickly. So knight h7, and now we have a series of forced moves. The first one is bishop d3, which attacks the pin piece twice, and black only has one way to stop this. Say if knight df6, by the way, knight g5, and the knight can't be protected again. Another reason why bishop takes f3 was such a good move. And also now we're going to see the critical point of why bishop takes f3 was better for black, and why this position is better for white. And the key difference is that bishop on g4 and knight in f3 is still on the board. That's the difference between advantage to white and advantage to black. Because after the forced f5, now every pawn move creates a weakness, and if you have a look now, the g6 square is weakened, and when the knight lands in g6 I'm going to lose the exchange, because I haven't got rid of the knight, he now has knight h4, and I have to give back the material. There's only one good move, another forced move. This was forced, I was going to take it next move otherwise, because I'd seen it by now. I should have played bishop takes f3, such a wally I am. And I played rook f6, which is the only defence. The reason is because it attacks his queen, because if I use the other move, rook g8, the thing is his queen attacks, so we can just take time and win my bishop with f3, and then win the exchange next move and have decisive material advantage. So I play rook f6, attacking the queen. The point being is that I'm forced to give up the exchange, but because he's already sacked a piece, the material will be quite level. He'll have a couple of extra pawns, but I remember there's always a chance of giving him an IQP as compensation. And I'll survive the worst of it anyway, because I thought I was lost. So anyway, it comes into g6, and now I have to take, because if king g8, then bishop c4, the bishop changes diagonal with decisive effect. In your games, remember to always watch for bishops changing diagonals randomly. They can be hard to spot them. But then my king's like completely cut off and everything drops off. So I have to take it. And after queen takes g6, we have now reached the critical position. Now the last 4, since queen g6 check, every move has been forced from both sides. Like every move, no alternatives. Just no strengths, no weaknesses, no alternatives, nothing. But however, now there's actually another forced move, but this is the only real hard forced move to see. So take stock of the material. We've got 2 knights against a rook and 2 pawns. So white's up a pawn in material. The advantage for white, however, is about 0.4, so this suggests that black's got compensation. So where could black's compensation come from? Well, white's attack with removal of that dangerous knight and blocking the bishop out has actually finished. But white has still got a few threats with bishop takes f5, and my bishop's also short squares. However, there is some dynamic chances perhaps if I get my pieces activated. And I should have played knight e5, which is actually the only move that keeps the game within black's reach. So if d takes e5, then queen takes d3, playing rook g8, so f3, so rook g8, queen d6, check, king h1, bishop h5. And in return for the material, black does have some potential initiative and counter-attacking chances. This won't be a bad position to play actually. Quite nice actually. And also I've got a bishop and knight against the rook and 2 pawns rather than 2 knights, and bishop and knight is much better, especially in this position. An alternative instead of taking it is to play queen h6, and after knight takes d3, now f3 because the bishop's trapped, bishop h5, queen takes h5, cd4, and again with his strong knight on d3, and now he survived the storm, black does have his own chances. And in fact this position it's not quite as good for black actually, but the material is going to be even, so white's probably slightly better on position due to black's rook and queen not being in game, but this is certainly preferable to game. Instead I made my final blunder of the tournament with queen e8, double question mark, and this is probably the worst one a lot to be honest. Just a terrible move, losing the game, losing everything, and losing the chance to get half points and confining me to 1.5 out of 5. Of course, you see what happens. Simple force win. Queen takes queen. Rook takes queen. And now, white's going to win another pawn with h3, forcing my bishop off f5. The next thing, both my knights are on pre as well. And after knight df6, rook a b1. Threatening b7 this time, giving me no respite. I tried to mix things up with c takes d4, but after rook takes b7, d takes c3. And now white had a good move with g4, trapping the bishop. I play rook g8, pinning the pawn so it can't be taken. And now if king h1, then bishop g6 is actually quite good for black. So he has to play rook c1 to keep a substantial advantage, and this is very similar to the game and very dire, that's for sure. I played rook c1, and with all these threats, with rook takes c3 and rook c7 coming, and then pressure on h7 and stuff like g4 threatening to trap the bishop coming, I saw no reason to continue and threw in the towel at this point. And this is a very instructive game, this, because it shows the importance of throwing in vision zugs when faced with unexpected moves, and also to stay calm when he played bishop takes h6, I should have stayed calmer, but because my confidence was a bit low due to recent bad results, I messed up under the pressure. Because I was under a bit of pressure, but I couldn't quite find the best moves, and I should have looked better at move n19 when I went queen e8 double question mark, and I may have found knight e5, but it was last round as well, with me already well out of running, since round 2. But it's just amazing how you can go from beating a 160 plus to losing to all these low rated players. I mean, they're still good players, and my opponent's game was quite strong. So even though that sack was unsound, it was still dangerous and had to be refuted. So I was playing hard opposition, and even the low rated clutched by an IM. But it was still 1.5 out of 5, it's still a loss in grading points. Again, it's good practice in that, but at the end of the day, it's lost points. But it's made some good videos. I hope you've enjoyed these 5 games from the tournament, and it was good fun anyway. And please visit the Epic Chess Cafe on ChessCube. Please follow us on Twitter, like the Facebook page, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And for now, for the Bradford games, that's it now. I'm not entirely sure, but this might be video 199, so the next one might be a special 200 video. Anyway, for now, please leave any comments and thoughts. Thanks very much.